Hey, thanks for joining us today, and happy Wednesday, Hail Stalkers. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and we are tracking storms across the plains today. The third day in a row for Denver to be in a hail and tornado risk, but the greatest risk for severe weather today is going to be up in the northern plains. We're talking about North Dakota, South Dakota, and portions of Nebraska. All eyes on the northern plains today, where we do have a level 2 tornado risk. And then as we head down to the south, we have just this ongoing round of storms that's going to cause a flood risk down in New Mexico and Texas. And we're also going to see severe weather across the northern plains again tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday. So we have 4 days of severe weather here. Before we get into what we see today or what we're expecting today, let's talk about what we saw yesterday. In your 24-hour storm reports, let me remind you where we had the greatest risk for severe weather yesterday across the Dakotas, very similar to what we're seeing today. But as we zoom out here, we didn't just have severe weather up there. We had severe weather across Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, including Dallas. Now, while Dallas was not in a severe storm risk, specifically a hail risk for yesterday, we actually saw a decent amount of hail reports across the city. We saw one out to the east. We've got another one up to the northeast. I will remind you here, these storm reports just for less than the size of a quarter for hail. So we're talking more like dime-sized hail here. Not terribly impressive, but still a severe thunderstorm warning right in the middle of the city between Fort Worth and Dallas, right at the evening commute. And we did get a ping pong ball size hail report down on the southern side of the city. We're talking about the Venus area. That's where we got that ping pong ball size hail report. And then we saw another severe thunderstorm warning just to the west of Fort Worth. So we had severe thunderstorm warnings all across the city, but we didn't have that risk in place yesterday. Just a reminder that even though we have severe risks for certain areas of the country, you're not exempt or totally in the clear of severe weather, right? It's just that type of setup that just about anything can happen. So just a reminder of what happened yesterday as we talk about storms today. Once again, we have the best chance for severe weather across the Dakotas. We've got a low pressure system up there. You can see this very clear boundary that goes all the way into Denver. And then we've got another boundary across the western portion of Oklahoma and Texas. Right along this area is going to be where we have the greatest risk for flooding today, just right in this area. We're going to have a lot of rain across this area, and just a little bit of rain goes a long ways. So we do have that risk, that level 2 risk for flooding. 76 right now in Oklahoma City. It's really nice today. 72 in Denver, a bit warm for y'all. 81 in Minneapolis, also very warm for Minneapolis. Minneapolis, your temperatures are very similar to Dallas today. 83 in Dallas, 81 in Minneapolis. Now we're continuing with this high pressure system farther out to the east, keeping most storms away. And then we've got that low pressure system in the Dakotas. But do you see this dip right here that goes into the eastern portion of Texas, all the way into Mexico? This is an area that we watched for storms yesterday. Better chances for storms out to the west today, but we can't rule out a little shower or two across northern Houston and to the north of there, talking about East Texas. But we'll talk about the greatest risk for storms. We've got a level 2 risk for severe weather from North Dakota to South Dakota across the northern portion of Nebraska. Tomorrow, we have a level 2 severe weather risk for South Dakota and Nebraska once again. By Friday, we try to pivot a little bit to the east, kind of getting into the Midwest, but then we go right back into the northern plains by Saturday. So really just staying in this part of the country for the most part, and we'll talk more about that here in just a few minutes. There's that level 2 flood risk that I talked about earlier. Scattered flash flooding possible across Oklahoma and Texas, North Dakota and South Dakota today. Tomorrow we have a level 1 risk, and I think the rest of our 5 days are also in that level 1 risk. So let's skip ahead and let's talk about storms today. Wind risk has now been extended all the way to Denver. Tornado risk also all the way extended into Denver. Hail risk also, you know what I'm going to say here, right? Extended into Denver. That's a brand new update that we got about 20 minutes ago. So we're glad that we can bring it to you as your first source of that update here at HailTrace. A level 2 wind risk across Aberdeen and Valentine, North Dakota, but I'm not too worried about the wind today. For the most part, it's going to be more of a tornado and hail day. So let's skip ahead to that tornado risk today. Hey, by the way, I told you guys this earlier. We do have that tornado risk extended all the way into Colorado. So level 2, most likely area for tornadoes will be across South Dakota today, including Aberdeen, all the way down to the central southern portion of the state. We go through northwest Nebraska and then all the way into Colorado, yes, including the city of Denver. So I know that's brand new information to a lot of people. Make sure that you're staying weather aware today. Have multiple ways to get your severe weather alerts. Now let's talk about hail, your significant hail model here. Look at central South Dakota. Look at this. I mean, these are some of the most impressive colors that we've seen in a long time in the significant hail model. Dark oranges, we've got some reds trying to sneak in there as well. What does this mean? That significant hail model shows the hail size. So we're talking about up to baseball size hail in the central portion of South Dakota today. Now let's talk about the likelihood to get baseball size hail. So we've got that potential. Do we have storms at the same time, right? You need storms to get hail. Well, it looks like we're going to see those first few storms of the day early this afternoon across South North Dakota and North South Dakota. Say that 5 times fast. That's the area that I'm pointing to right here. Gets a little confusing. Let's go down to the south. Let's go into the central portion of South Dakota here. A few storms, okay, by 5 o'clock, but watch what happens between 5 and 7 o'clock tonight. Tons of storms fill this area, and now all of a sudden we have a widespread severe weather potential outbreak here. What we're watching for are a few tornadoes across this area. Remember, this is the level 2 tornado risk. And then we've also got a really good potential for some very large hail in this area. Baseball size is what I have for the max hail size for today. Again, storm initiation for the most part for South Dakota right around 5 o'clock, continuing through the late night hours. A little bit earlier than that for North Dakota. I hope that you guys are keeping this straight. It's hard for me to keep this straight. South Dakota, North Dakota, southern side of South Dakota. Yeah, okay. As I mentioned earlier, forecast max hail size, baseball size hail, 2.75 inches. Yesterday, we got a report of 3.5 inch hail. That was across New Mexico. Today, we're expecting that large hail to mainly be focused across the Dakotas into Nebraska. And then I went ahead and I put Denver in that golf ball size hail risk for today. I'm keeping it a low risk, so we're keeping it in the green right here, but I still think that a few storms over here have the potential to produce some hail. We saw on Monday that that's an absolute possibility. If you can get the storm in the right place, it could be very, very impactful. We also have a hail risk across the southern portion of Texas, and I brought down this quarter-size hail risk into New Mexico. The Storm Prediction Center didn't bring it this far south. I went ahead and brought it this far south just because we've seen some funky storms go on here lately. Before we move on from today's forecast, do we have any questions, John? As always, okay, John says that we're good. As always, put your weather questions in the chat. We're pretty good about addressing those. But as I mentioned earlier, the Storm Prediction Center didn't bring their storm risk all the way down into southern Colorado and northern New Mexico. I went ahead and did that. You know, sometimes we see some storms just pop up in this area, so I wanted to be prepared for that. But let's talk about timeline for Denver today. You know, you start to see your first few storms forming just west of I-25 right around 2 o'clock this afternoon. This is Central Time. And then they really get going closer to 5 o'clock. So right before that evening commute, you can expect at least one severe thunderstorm warning. But I do think that we'll have a few more as we head into the evening hours as these track to the east. By 9 o'clock tonight, most of these storms should lose a lot of their steam in Colorado. Then, of course, we're focused on Nebraska and South Dakota, as we mentioned earlier. Lubbock this week. Well, we can move down to Lubbock right now. We have a chance for storms in Lubbock today, but most likely it'll be more of a flooding chance than a severe weather chance. Your hail and your wind forecast for today is extremely low hazards, extremely low threat. But then you've got tons of rain that go across I-40 and all the way down into southwestern Texas. Tons of rain in this area. A little goes a long way. That's going to cause that flooding risk. And I think I actually have flooding as my next graphic. Here's your 24-hour rainfall. Here's your flash flood today. It does include Lubbock, Texas. We've got a level 2 risk here for scattered flash flooding, which means that place in your neighborhood that always tends to flood, pond with water. That's an area that you have to keep an eye on today. Underpasses, off-ramps, intersections, keep an eye on that as it rains today. I know this area of the country floods really, really easily. So it's a level 2 today, level 1 tomorrow, but I could see that getting upgraded across Oklahoma. High pressure system right now, we've got a low pressure system up to the north. This is a very consistent pattern that we're going to see over the next few days, keeping that main severe weather risk across the northern portion of the U.S., which means Nebraska and South Dakota. So we're looking at tomorrow now. Here's your hail risk for tomorrow. We've got a level 2 for larger hail across the northwestern portion of Nebraska, southwestern portion of South Dakota, Rapid City, Valentine, Nebraska, Sioux Falls, all included in the severe weather risk for tomorrow, that level 2 severe weather risk, which we call moderate. It just means that we're going to have more scattered storms across this area. So that's Thursday. Once again, I do think that a few of these hailstones could get up to baseball-size hail. Most of them smaller than that, but maybe a few of them up to baseball-size hail. Very similar to what we saw yesterday, where a ton of hail reports came in that were quarter-size hail, but then we had one that was 3.5 inches. Very similar. There, we're talking about most of these smaller hailstones, but some of them could get a little bit larger. Your wind forecast, more scattered showers and storms anywhere from Rapid City to Valentine to Sioux Falls. So we've got that in a level 2 risk, and then we've got your tornado risk for Thursday right on Rapid City. Rapid City, you've got just day after day after day of storms. Now let's talk about Friday. So we're staying in the plains, but barely shifting into the Midwest by Friday, anywhere from Lincoln to Des Moines, La Crosse, all seeing those scattered showers and storms. But even Kansas City tries to get in on the hail action on Friday, as we do have you guys in that golf ball size hail risk for storms in the afternoon and late evening hours. This could be a late storm system on Friday, so don't get complacent. I know you've got your weekend plans, but this could be a late storm system. We have a wind risk with this as well, and then a tornado risk, of course, as well. Now, the Storm Prediction Center has not released their tornado risk yet, but whenever I was taking a look at the models today, I pinpointed an area that I thought had the greatest tornado risk. I went right north of Kansas City, including St. Joe, Lincoln, and Des Moines, all included in this. This is subject to change as we get better model data over the next few days. We're still lacking a little bit of that model data. So one last recap here. Most of our storms will be in the northern portion of the U.S. over the next few days. We're really staying in the northern plains, which isn't too atypical for this time of the year. Omaha by Friday, just south of Minneapolis on Friday, and then we go back up to Montana and North Dakota on Saturday. By Sunday, I do think that we'll have storms, but I think that we just don't have enough model data quite yet to pinpoint where that is. Speaking of all of our storms being in the northern portion of the U.S., how typical is that? For that, I'm going to bring in meteorologist Martin Lauermore to break down exactly why we're seeing that shift farther up to the north.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. So really the biggest thing that we see the difference between springtime and summertime is the positioning of the jet stream. So this right here is a very typical springtime setup. You've got the low pressure that's always going to be digging in over toward the Rockies. Jet stream falls further south. That causes storms to fire mostly in your central and sometimes in maybe your southern plains as well. But what also interacts is this high pressure here that is usually parked out over either in the Gulf states or off of the coast if you do see those storms trying to filter into the Gulf states. So that is your normal springtime setup. Now, as we get into summertime, we have obviously things get warmer. As we get further into the season, into your spring and into your summer, temperatures get warmer. This actually causes this high pressure to really get a lot stronger thanks to the jet stream getting pushed further north. This is what we usually call the summer death ridge. We have that clockwise motion here with this high pressure that pushes that the jet stream further north. We still do have a general low up towards parts of Canada, but what this really does push for the summertime is that we normally see these storms in the northern plains. Pretty much exactly pinpointed exactly where we're sitting for those storms yesterday and today. We saw some of those storm chances out toward Wyoming. The Dakotas is going to be today. Could be seeing a little bit of that in Minnesota. This is pretty common for what we usually see this time of year. We are a little bit early to the party when it comes to seeing these storms getting pushed up to the north. It's usually closer to about our late June, but it's not exactly a super uncommon thing to see these storms a little bit earlier in the year. So we're kind of in that in-between area where we could still see some storms further south in the central and southern plains, as we are going to be seeing better chances come the next couple of days. Kansas City, you're back in that risk yet again that Taylor was showing you. So you're not completely out of it yet, but we are still going to be watching for much more of those storms in the northern plains over the next couple of days, thanks to that high pressure that Taylor actually showed you on your jet stream earlier. So we're seeing that high pressure really build in. The jet stream is much further north. So overall, storms in the northern plains are going to be something to be expecting. DFW, Friday through Monday. Taylor, what are you thinking on that severe weather risk for DFW? I'm not exactly, I mean, the thing is that yesterday, DFW was barely really in a risk, and yet they had those storms. So with the little forcing that we're seeing right now, these storms really can fire up in most areas. So that is one of the big things that we're watching for sure. But we're gonna get back to that forecast in just a moment, but really showing you, again, those northern plains storms, they're going to be pretty action-packed over the next couple of days. And I imagine as we get into late June, we're going to see more of this trend as high pressure builds, thanks to the warming surface temperatures that we've been seeing as the days get longer, as we get into summer. So things are looking pretty interesting as we wrap up our spring and head directly into that summer.
That was a great forecast, Martin. I appreciate the update on the northern shift. You know, we see all of those storms farther up to the north, which isn't too abnormal for this time of the year. We usually start to see that shift. It may happen a few weeks later on average, but we are starting to see that shift up to the north. I want to grab a graphic here, and I want to answer that DFW question. I want to go back to this. So the question was, and I think John's popping that on the screen. Perfect, John, thank you. DFW, Friday through Monday, any severe weather. So I want to show you guys what we're actually seeing. We talked about this earlier. We've got this ridge, right, which keeps us very dry and warm. That's sinking air. It's a high pressure system, sinking air. Now we've got this low pressure system out in the Pacific. This is rising air. So that brings that lift to severe weather that we really need. We need moisture, we need heat, we need lift, we need shear. There's that lift. But right in the middle, not a ton going on, right? We've got what we call zonal flow. We've got these parallel lines here, parallel with the state lines right there. That means that whatever weather you're in is pretty consistent. That's the weather that you're going to be in tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. We're not going to change too much with this zonal flow. But there's a weird thing going on as you head farther down to the south, and you see this dip in that ridge, and you see just a little trough trying to form, which is why I think Texas weather has been a little funky. Hence the surprise storm in Dallas yesterday, surprise storms in Dallas yesterday. Surprise storm in Houston yesterday that produced a little bit of hail. Something happens, which I think is what Chipper's referring to, where we have a little low pressure system that tries to form between Friday and Sunday, sometime over the weekend. This is going to bring just enough lift that we have to keep an eye on it as we head, especially into Sunday, as we start to see this pop up on our 500 millibar map right here, that could bring enough lift that we see more activity down to the south. And I'm really looking at central Texas all the way up to eastern Oklahoma and into the Ozarks, right in this area. It's something the Storm Prediction Center has highlighted in their discussions. They haven't made a map on it, but they've talked about it in their text. If you see their, I know a lot of people we're all weather nerds here, right? You read the Storm Prediction Center text. I think this is what they're talking about, is this little area something that we have to keep an eye on. As we head into the end of the weekend, you can see that we see more development of that by Sunday and even into Monday. So that's the reference that I think that Chipper is getting at there. What about severe weather down in Texas this weekend with that low pressure system? I think you're onto something, but I also don't think that we have enough information with our severe weather models quite yet to tell you exactly what's going on, but I think it's something to keep an eye on. I really appreciate that question. Let's move on to temperatures, unless we have any last questions about severe weather. John says we're all good. All right. I hope you like warm weather. Summer is coming early. It's going to be warm as it always is in June, but it's just a little bit above average. We have the highest likelihood for temps above average between Minneapolis and Chicago. We're going to see that active wet weather continue across the southern portion of the U.S., but really for most of the U.S., we have a good chance for rainfall totals more than average, above average. And there's your forecast for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox. Make sure that you follow us on all forms of social media, including Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We post about all things weather, primarily hail, tornadoes, and wind, usually in that order. And we also post about all things happening at HailTrace, so make sure that you follow us on all of these platforms. Also, give us a call if you're interested in a hail, wind, or tornado map. All of those storms that we had yesterday, all of those maps are updated at HailTrace.com. Give us a call at 855-334-4245 or email us at info@HailTrace.com or head over to our website, HailTrace.com. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you back here, same time, same place for your forecast tomorrow.